For me, this is about more than just digital citizenship. This is about looking at technology literacy in general. It's about how students create media. It's about how they organize their digital lives. It's about how they conduct research using online tools. And it's about digital citizenship. It seemed the obvious place to start was the Grade 8 unit on digital citizenship, which is part of an overall unit on citizenship.
They're used to traveling and being in different countries, and in grade 8 using their passport way more than I ever did. But I also think that they definitely resonate more or more connected to the digital, the idea of being a digital citizen. I just believe that they're so much more connected and they're more interested in the digital world right now. And it's more real to me to teach that, because then I see them use it.
The first lessons we did was based on their online persona or online personality even, and that was basically looking at their digital footprint through their social media or website. I think all of them were on some form of social media, even if it was just Skype. And I think all but 1 or 2 kids in my class were on Facebook. But even those kids still used, whether it was like a chat or Skype or something like that. So they're all online in some way. And in a sense, because of the nature of our school, you have to be. So the first part, we were just looking at how students are perceived, what their branding is, what you call it. And, is it positive, is it negative, and how can they build up a more positive presence or limit or mitigate the negative. So that was pretty neat.
In the Digital Detectives lesson, the students got to pick out a volunteer teacher and more or less cyberstalk them. This is one of the things that the students enjoyed doing the most. And maybe it was not a surprise, but almost all of them wanted to pick people that they knew in real life, real teachers. So Lauren, Wells, and I and Adam were all part of this group. One of the things that the students said to me that they loved was seeing some of Lauren's blog. Lauren has a blog called What Would She Say? Lauren has a sister who's autistic, and the blog is premised around the question that Lauren often asks herself: what would her sister say about all of the things going on in Lauren's life? And the kids were fascinated by hearing about some of the real things that teachers were going through as adults. This activity actually sparked a little bit of controversy. Some of the teachers in the lunchroom thought that it was opening a bit of a can of worms to encourage students to cyberstalk even volunteer teachers, because it would encourage them to take a look at other teachers as well, who hadn't necessarily volunteered. One of the big challenges that I faced in working with the 3 teachers was to see if we could find ways of looking at these lessons at a redefinition level on the SAMR model. One of the challenges with this was that before we started working together, none of them even knew what the SAMR model was. They were new teachers and hadn't looked at it in previous schools. One of the things that I really wanted to do, though, was to make sure that the students were actually using social media as they were studying social media. I had been looking at some of the lessons in common sense media, particularly some of the ones looking at online safety, which was one of the 4 strands that the teachers had come up with. When I looked at the common sense media online safety lessons, they seemed very worksheet and discussion oriented. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it seemed like this was an opportunity for a little bit more technology integration, hopefully even at the redefinition level. There was a lesson that focused on looking at different scenarios. Students would look at the different scenarios and then judge the danger level, whether it was green light, everything okay, yellow light, warning, red light, danger. And then they were supposed to talk about why they rated it in each way. While I was working with Sandra in her class, I took this same idea, but then reframed it in a Google Plus community. This way, there would be a number of advantages. One was that they would be able to learn a little bit about Google Plus community, so it would add a new element to the lesson. It would also allow them to easily comment on each of the scenarios and to see each other's comments. But all of this is really at the augmentation level. Trying to push it towards modification and redefinition, we said in addition to students commenting on these scenarios, they could also offer up their own scenarios and comment on each other's original scenarios as well. This would give us a good formative picture of how the students were thinking about these issues. The other nice thing about this activity is that in addition to online safety and privacy, it also got the kids engaged in online communities. For all the importance of online safety and privacy, one of my major goals in the Digital Citizenship Unit was to move students beyond just thinking about stranger danger and to consider some of the deeper ethical issues involved.
After that lesson, I think we started getting into a lot more content that students weren't completely aware of. They knew it was out there, but they weren't completely familiar with it. Whether it was the podcast from This American Life about the trolling and right, and then the woman who was trolled actually meeting or talking with her troll and having a real conversation. I mean, from the students' responses to that, they really were into it and found that meaningful.
The story that Adam's talking about here is something that aired on This American Life about a writer called Lindy West. She'd been trolled before for some of her feminist writings online, but there was one troll who really crossed a line. Just weeks after the death of her father, he created a fake Gmail account under her father's name and sent her a message as if he were her father, expressing her father's supposed disappointment. And it just devastated her. And she was trying to decide how to react to it.
I could just stop writing altogether. I've thought about it. But it seems to me that our silence is what the trolls want. Faced with Pa West Dunzo, I was stuck with the question, what should I do? If I respond, I'm a sucker. But if I don't respond, I'm a punching bag. So I did what you're not supposed to do. I fed the troll. I wrote about Pa West Dunzo in an article for Jezebel.com. I wrote sadly, candidly, angrily about how much it hurt, how much that troll had succeeded. And then something amazing happened.
If you haven't heard it yet, I highly recommend you take a listen to the episode on This American Life and hear about Lindy West's reconciliation with her troll. This story was particularly powerful for the students because oftentimes they feel caught in the middle of something. They want to respond, they want to do something to help, but at the same time they don't want to feed the troll. And this was a great example of someone finding a third option. For the final summative lesson of the unit, the teachers decided that they were going to have the grade 8 students create a lesson about some element of digital citizenship and then teach that to the grade 6 students. Lauren found a tool called 5-Minute Lesson Plan from a site in the UK, but they needed to scaffold it a little bit for the grade 8 students. I took the plans that the teachers provided and recast it as a Google slideshow that the students could then make copies of and fill in. Not only would this provide better scaffolding for the students, but it would also allow them to collaborate and comment on each other's work much more easily. However, all of this still seemed a little bit more like augmentation and modification than it did actual redefinition. To push the final summative task towards redefinition, I showed the teachers the EdTech Teacher website, which contains lots of innovative lessons. How cool would it be if the students' lessons ended up on their page? So I contacted EdTech Teacher and I found the Google form that people can use to submit lessons. Hopefully, the top student lessons from this year will make it onto EdTech Teacher.
This is a trial, and it was awesome, but I want more. I want more you, and I want more all three of us.
It was a trial and it was a ton of fun, and I thank the teachers that I work with so much for all of their hard work on this. And next year, we'll be doing it again. And that's the design cycle, that's the SAMR model, it's just teaching.